Welcome to Speak for Yourself from the Crib, presented by Hyundai. I'm Marcel Swally. Coming up, we'll tell you why the NBA's return might not live up to expectations and if Lamar Jackson is going to radically change his game. But right now, I'm joined by LeVar Arrington and Mark Schlereth. Guys, let's get started in Kansas City and talk some Patrick Mahomes, who is starting to discover his inner activist in recent weeks as the country has turned its attention to issues of racism and police brutality. Mahomes has thrown his support behind the Black Lives Matter movement and participated in a video message to the league about inequality. And now he's explained what's driving his newfound passion for trying to affect change.
We needed to come together as a group, as players, and show that we believe that Black Lives Matter and that we believe that this needs to be informed and we need to be the role models to go out there and take that step.
Mark, what are your thoughts on Mahomes' comments?
No, I absolutely love where his heart is right now. And the fact that he's saying that, hey, we need to be the role models, because I believe that. You know, as a kid growing up in Alaska, the guys I aspired to be were the Pittsburgh Steelers. They were my favorite team. That's what I wanted to be. And since the time I was 12 years old, the only thing I wanted to be was an NFL player. And that was the influence of the Pittsburgh Steelers. But when I got into the National Football League, I've got to tell you, my role models became a lot of my teammates. And, you know, those guys that served our community, those guys that were great Christian men, that loved their families, that were great fathers, you know, most of those guys that I aspired to in my career were my friends that were black. It was Darryl Green, it was Art Monk, and it was Monty Coleman, and it was Charles Mann. These guys made huge influences on my life, and I aspired to be like those guys. I wanted to be the husband, the father, the man of God that those guys were. And so, you know, we have a great opportunity. NFL players have a great opportunity to show that we can put our differences aside as men and love one another, and that our differences are great strengths. And ultimately, in a locker room, once you get beyond that, you start to understand that a lot more connects you that is alike than is different. And so I love the fact that Patrick Mahomes, who is the face of this league, the unicorn, the best quarterback right now playing, is out front saying, man, we're going to be role models and we're going to effectively make a change. And that, to me, is an exciting place to start at.
You know, I like it, too. I definitely like the comments, and I believe in the comments. I've always been one who has been proactively trying to influence young men. That's been my passion. That's been my love. So I love hearing him come out and say that. You know, a lot of things that you learn when you're around young people, young men, it confirms how impressionable they are, how easily moldable and shapeable, pliable young men that I deal with, and I'm sure women as well, but me particularly. You just see how influential you can be on what they end up aspiring to be. So when I think of being role models, the first thing that comes to mind is Charles Barkley, right? And Charles Barkley in his era saying that I'm not a role model, so don't look at me as being one. And I start thinking about this topic with Patrick Mahomes coming out and saying it, and I was like, wow, you know, those days with Charles Barkley, and we just watched Last Dance, there was so much obscurity on the personal and private elements of people's lives, their lifestyle. So it's like, you can see me and like me as a player, but don't see me and like me as a person because you don't know me. Well, social media has totally changed that element now. You can get to know somebody by their feed, by their story. It's called the story, right? So there is so much influence with these athletes today that it is sensible to approach who you are, what you do, what your identity is in a detailed manner that becomes a model that people will want to follow and try to be like, because they're going to do it anyway. So you might as well proactively be a positive enforcement of what it is that they're looking at you to try to become anyway, Marcellus.
I think his comments are well-intentioned, but you know what else is well-intentioned? The road to hell, paved with good, well-intentions. And this is why I don't like this. I think that athletes as a role model should be a luxury, not an obligation. I think too many times it distracts and detours parents from what their responsibility is, which is to raise your own damn kids. Stop letting a guy who could dribble be that great an influence on rounding out who your kid is going to become. Too many times we see athletes have their own shortcomings. And let's talk about pro athletes. We've all been one in our 20s trying to figure it out. Maybe lucky enough to play in your 30s like I was, you guys were, still trying to figure it out. I shouldn't have that influence on your home. You should not turn on the channel that says pro athlete and say, watch this and learn from this, unless you're talking about the sport specifically, and that only. 70%, and some people want to play with the numbers, but let's use 70%, of pro athletes that retire face incarceration, divorce, or financial distress. Be real about this. I sit on both sides of the table in any conversation. You got to keep it 100. We are not the ones to look up to in terms of dictating what your child's future should look like. That's only an athletic realm. I know too many athletes. They're not well-rounded. They are amazing at one thing, and you see that on full public display. But to now make the assumption that I want that guy to dictate to my child how to become, Charles Barkley had it right. He said, raise your own damn kids. Because if you don't take that responsibility on, the streets are truly welcoming that opportunity to have that same influence on your kid before a 1 in a million athlete will even have that opportunity.
Yeah, well, I would look at this, though, Marcellus. I mean, I understand where you're coming from. I understand where Charles Barkley was coming from. And I do think it's, me personally, I think it's your responsibility when you're put in the limelight, when you're put in the public eye, to conduct your life in a manner that's, that honors that. But it is the responsibility of the parents. And this is one thing I always said about my own kids. I may have not done everything right, but they can never be mad at me for not being there. I did not outsource the raising of my children. I was there. I coached their soccer teams. I coached their baseball teams. I coached the football teams. I coached everything, and I was at every event. So I'm not going to outsource my kids. At the same, I can look at athletes that say, hey, man, there's a guy that seems to be doing it right. Let's learn the lesson. Or there's a guy that I don't like the way he's doing it. Let's learn that lesson. Either way, you're still helping to mold, my opportunity to talk to my kids, because I know one thing. If you love sports, you are going to, watch these athletes and you're going to aspire to be like those athletes. So there are great teaching moments in there. And I understand what you're saying, but I've always felt like if you're blessed enough to play a professional sport, then you have a responsibility to conduct yourself. That's a privilege, and to conduct yourself in a way that represents that privilege.
I guess what I'll say in response is being around young men every day of my life, being on the phone with parents every day of my life. This is what I do. I would say it sounds good in theory and in reality as to what your explanation was, Marcellus, and your expansion of it, Stink. But a harsh reality that exists is that a lot of times parents are unaware that they are not the proper influence in their kids' lives. Sometimes parents are not able to be that influence in their parents' lives for one reason or another. It's not a conversation to try to dissect and delve into right now because it's too big of a conversation to have. But I don't feel like, for me, I would be responsible in not saying and addressing that the fact of the matter is these young people are searching and looking for the clarity of who they would like to be in their lives. And to say, I'm not responsible for that, let your parents handle that, I think it's a selfish approach. I also think it's irresponsible if you're a person of influence and if you have gravity, because we should always be striving to make sure that we reach back and give back. Now, I heard luxury versus it being a mandatory deal, but to see Patrick Mahomes, which this is the reason why we're having the debate in the first place, to see a young man take the onus and say we need to be more proactive and responsible as to how we're handling things and the way we're doing those things so that we could be the proper role models to these aspiring young people that want to be like us. I not only think that that's admirable and commendable, but I think it's necessary. It has to become a true necessity to want to be able to impact those that are coming after you. Blaze your trail, do what you do, and take that knowledge and pass it on to the next generation of guys. I think that that's the most responsible and most fulfilling way to approach what you do in life. So for me, I'm not ever going to take and really default my ability to influence young people and know how big that impact is, even if it's just one person's life that I impact and they do something with it. If it's just one, that one person was one more than enough than I needed to have an influence on to give them a proper opportunity to shape their identity.
I applaud that response. That's why the show is called Speak for Yourself, man. I really applaud that. I want to reset and make sure that I clearly tell everyone, when you're talking about looking outside of your family structure for influence, whatever you see out there is a luxury, but it's not an obligation for them, and it's not their responsibility. It is yours. Too many parents I know want to skirt that responsibility and put it on an athlete. The breakdown of the family in our country is at the core of many of the issues we're facing. The breakdown of the family, not the affluence of athletes. They don't go together. You sitting there setting your sights on something that is 1 in a million at best to even attain, let alone if you attain it, you are just 4 years old in terms of independence. You left the house at 18, you're 22, you got millions of dollars, and now some kids are gonna learn from you? Look, the Forbes list is littered with successful people who bet on their brains and not their bodies. And I want to tell everyone out there, it's an amazing experience being an athlete. But if we were to take everyone behind the veil, I don't know if I want my child raised by those same athletes in character. It's just that simple. So it's too much real life importance on the family structure and the nuclear unit to put it on a guy whose greatest focus is just completing a few more passes every game. I am not letting my children, all 4 of them, be influenced with somebody whose game plan is only 3 hours to make sure the ball goes up and down the field. Coming up, the NBA's return is around the corner with our Luka, LeBron, and the rest of the league in for a rude awakening. Find out next. Time now for a big story sponsored by KFC's $20 fill-up. Drive-thrus open or get delivery by Grubhub. Welcome to Speak for Yourself from the crib. Marcel Swally, joined now by a couple of Fox NBA analysts. We got my man Slick Rick the Bucher in the house and Jim Jackson, pretty Jimmy. Let's move to the association, which has everybody pumped up for its return next month, but could be setting fans up for a rude awakening. According to Luka Doncic's trainer, the young Maverick star has struggled to stay in shape during the shutdown. And so have a lot of other players who have been forced to find ways to stay active under lockdown orders and without the chance to actually play. So, Jim, I want to know, are you worried about the quality of play once the NBA does return?
You know what? It goes both ways for me. One, as far as Luka's trainer, I wonder what the context of that question was and why he put that information out. It's kind of weird that he would put it out. You know what I mean? It is kind of weird. But I am concerned from this perspective. With the lockout and lockout years we've had, you didn't have the restrictions that you couldn't go out and play, meaning you can go out and get pickup in. Maybe you're not at your practice facility, but you can still go play 5-on-5 somewhere. You can still get a group of guys together and kind of simulate basketball activities and kind of keep that season coming into the season momentum going, okay? With this pandemic, you got shut down, okay? Yeah, you can run, you can go on the beach, you can do a lot of things. Marcellus, you know this from playing football. Football activities and game is one thing. Going out there and just running around and lifting weights, that's something totally different. So I'm concerned about, at the beginning, the game shape of a lot of players, just because you haven't had that activity. But I do think players will make the adjustment, especially teams who are going to go deeper into their playoff rounds.
I'm not worried about it because it's inevitable. It is. It's not going to be the best basketball we expect, especially when we're talking about we're anticipating playoff level basketball. We're anticipating end of the season basketball. And what we're getting is training camp going into playoff level basketball. There's no way for these players to be ready collectively, whether it's as a team or individually. Now, there are guys, and Luka Doncic is one of them. There are guys that are just, and I'm sure both of you know this, there are guys that, because of their metabolism, because of their habits, they're bad body guys. They just walk by a cheeseburger and a plate of fries and they pick up 10 pounds. And particularly guys like Doncic, who's a gym rat, if you look at where he comes from, he's just been used to playing all the time. He hasn't necessarily done all the conditioning stuff that we see LeBron and some other guys do. So you take away the game, and suddenly the ability to stay in condition is different. The other element is, and I put Doncic, I put Nikola Jokic, Kyle Lowry's that kind of guy, Joel Embiid. I mean, some of these guys are primary players and bigs. Zion Williamson, I'm really fascinated to see where he is because I saw him in the locker room, and he's not a guy that has bad weight. He just carries a lot of weight. And again, it's those habits of young players that haven't learned, boy, I really got to be on top of this in terms of what I eat and how I work out in order to stay on top of it. So I'm fully expecting that this is going to be a rough go of it, and that there are going to be some key players that they're going to have to be very careful with to avoid injury. Iron sharpens iron. Aluminum doesn't sharpen iron. So these guys not being able to compete against other top athletes, like even if you had it open and you could go to the Y, you could play 6 hours in the Y and not be at NBA level conditioning. And I know you guys know this, but I think the general public doesn't understand the level of conditioning that it requires to play professional sports. It's not the gym. It's not the Y. It's not, I look good in my, I look good going to the beach. It's, you got to go that extra level. And the only way you get to that extra level is by playing against other guys who are going to take your job if you're not getting to that extra level.
Preach, Rick. Man, it's going to look a mess. I'm not worried. I'm hella worried about the product we're going to see in terms of conditioning and the injuries that come because not everyone's going to be in proper shape. Let's remember, all quarantines aren't created equal. LeBron having a home equinox and full court accessibility is not the same as some other guy who got a rented condo and is trying to do some shuttle drills in his kitchen. That dude's in trouble, and that dude is in the NBA. You talked about Zion Williamson. Have we seen him lately? I just want to make sure because I don't want to go out of turn and say something about him, but I'm really worried about him. We've been in the locker room before. Jimmy, you were a player. I've been there many a times. I'm watching these guys have pregame meals. Dwight Howard was offering me Big Macs, and I'm looking at Dwight Howard, six-pack, bowling ball shoulders, eating a Big Mac while playing.
Right.
Those habits are hard to break for other people not as blessed as a Dwight Howard. So I wonder how it's going to affect everyone. It's interesting, too, that his trainer put this out. Because this isn't dry snitching. This is wet snitching. Like, you really went there on your own player that is actually paying your tab for him to go out there and be in shape because of what you guys do. So that angle right there makes me a little curious into what's this all about. But when we talk about them hitting the ground running, some of them, unfortunately, are going to be jogging or walking.
Marcellus, and that's why I said the context of the question. We got the answer from Luka's trainer, but we didn't get the full question of why he put that in there. So it would be interesting to dive into that. But let me give you an example. Twice in my career, I didn't go to training camp. So I, worked out. One time I was in Sacramento, I signed in December. One time in Miami, I signed in November, no training camp. But I was able to come in, hit the ground running, and actually play significant minutes without having a training camp, okay? But, again, the difference being I was able to play and work out and have basketball simulation. I think also what we got to talk about, guys, is the mental part of what's going to happen once they get to Orlando. The NBA has done a great job with the Players Association of giving the players about a 2-month window or a month window. It's June 21st, July 31st. You got time to get acclimated back in between coming back to camp and actually playing if they keep that July 31st date. But what about the mental aspect of coming now and playing in a bubble? Yes, guys are going to be able to get back in shape. They're going to be able to get more continuity with their teammates. They'll be able to handle stuff on the court. The part we're not talking about, though, is the mental part of now being secluded in an area that you're not accustomed to, in a bubble. You're not able to leave. When you play games before you leave, maybe 2 or 3 days, you stay in the city, you go home, back to familiar surroundings. You're not going to have that. So to me, the teams that can advance are not only going to be, because you take away the home court advantage and all of those things, it's not only teams that are going to be physically better or, talented, but it's the team that's going to be mentally tougher to deal with the environment around them. That's not going to change. That bubble is not going to change. So the mentally tough team is the one, to me, along with the talent, that will come out in the end and ultimately win this championship.
Pretty Jimmy, you are 100% correct in that. I talked to an assistant coach on one of the top playoff teams, and you can bet this is almost like it's inevitable that we're going to have bad basketball. It's inevitable that nickname is going to stick. You just got to roll with it. I talked to an assistant coach on one of the top playoff teams, and he said the mental aspect of this is going to be the biggest challenge and the biggest determining factor. And when it comes to Doncic, one of the extenuating circumstances here is that he was really beat up when we stopped playing. And so you have to go through that period of allowing your body to recover. It's natural. You get some time off. You want to heal. Well, but you're going to get out of shape. And then how are you going to get back in shape when you don't have your facilities? And, oh, by the way, when we go to Orlando, it's going to be a different circumstance. These guys are not going to have their home facilities, their team facilities. And I can tell you, it's one of the home court advantages is that when a guy wants to go and shoot at midnight or 1 a.m. or get some treatment or whatever, he has his facilities right there to take care of him. None of the teams are going to have that advantage. And again, it's one of those subtle things about being a professional athlete that allows guys to get to their premium abilities. And we're not going to see that in any way, shape, or form. And that's going to be the other mental challenge is when I'm not in the ideal condition, when we're not playing well, when we don't have that acuity, can I push through that and continue to fight even when we're playing bad basketball?
Right. Good point.
Yeah, as the old adage goes, from every conditioning coach in pro sports, it takes forever to get in shape and no time to get out of it. So it's like that. I mean, you can walk in there six-packed up, ripped up, and take a week or two off and then come back and try to do that drill. You're like, what just happened? And put it in layman's terms for everyone out there. Say you took a test tomorrow and you aced the test. And then for the next month, you didn't really look at the notes, didn't look at the test, didn't look at the materials. And then you had to take that test again. You think you're going to get the same grade? Hell no, you're not going to get the same grade. You're going to feel the same effect that we're talking about physically with these athletes. So in a situation where it was quarantine, it was taboo to even get your run on, to go in public and do it, it's crazy. And I love the fact that you said, Jim, you can't simulate game shape. Like, we used to do all the football drills to get ready, get pumped, but there's no machine, no simulation that has an angry 300-pound man trying to push you against your will. They ain't made that machine yet, and they're never going to make it. And so this situation, and then you throw them all in the bubble, they're going to be in that bubble for a few months. stuck with a side piece for a few months, oh, it's going to be a problem. Coming up, sounds like Lamar Jackson could be planning to change his game in a major way. We'll see if that works out for Lamar and the Ravens next. Welcome back to Speak for Yourself from the Crib, presented by Hyundai. Marcellus Wiley here, joined once again by LeVar Arrington and Super Bowl champion OG himself, Brian Cox.
What up, fella?
Okay, I see you, big dog. Let's move to Baltimore right now, where Lamar Jackson is looking to follow up his MVP campaign with another monster season. But he could be making some big changes to his game. Lamar says he doesn't expect to carry the ball as much this season. And Ravens coach John Harbaugh says Lamar will use his arm to make teams pay for loading up to stop the run. So, Brian, Papa Bear, you think this is a smart approach for Lamar and the Ravens?
Absolutely. I think when you mature as a quarterback, you don't want to be known as that running back. I think of Steve Young, and Michael Vick. Michael Vick was more of a pocket passer that could scramble. Steve Young was more of a guy, in Tampa Bay at least, he was a runner who couldn't really throw, and he got to San Francisco. He became a better passer. I think if you're a quarterback, a young quarterback, and you want to stay healthy and you want to make a lot of money in this league, you better learn how to throw the ball. And I think with the weapons that they've amassed, I think it's probably a smart play, unless the game's on the line, and then you tell Lamar, go make a play, go be a football player and do what you do.
It pains me to disagree with the OG, double OG, triple OG. But I'm gonna use this example. No, I do not think that it's a smart approach, for one. For two, when I was in the league, I used to study a whole lot about what my pass rush moves were going to be. Not before then. Once I got to the league, I started doing this. I did a whole lot of stuff when I came off of the ball. Some was speed, some was up and under, there's all these different things. And I can remember watching a whole bunch of film on one Brian Cox, right? Now, let me tell y'all something about Brian Cox. Brian Cox perfected and mastered the jab step to the inside and swim or club and rip to get around that tackle. And no one ever stopped it. All right? And I'll be like, man, B. Cox don't look like he moving fast at all. They're like, Bruce Smith told me it doesn't matter how fast he moves, it's how effective his movement and what he's doing is. And you don't stop until somebody forces you to do something different. It's the same that illustration goes to what I'm thinking with Lamar Jackson. Do not put that out there. And I think if you put it out there, it's smart to put smoke and mirrors out there. It's smart to drop a little bit of oil behind the car so the car's behind chase and slip. But you're not really putting out what your plan is. So if you're saying Lamar's not going to run more and this, that, and the other, you're putting smoke screens out there. And I'm going to tell you this before I give it to you, Marcellus. If you're telling that man to stop doing what has made this team so special and has separated them basically from every other team in the National Football League, I just don't think that that's a smart approach. He's going to run. Let him feel confident about running. He's still young. He's still healthy. At this moment in time, you don't have to try to figure out something new. Let that man be special and let everybody with him be special with him. That's, I don't think it's smart.
Man, y'all got me torn because you guys are both right in my mind. Let me explain that. I used to be the guy like you, LeVar, is like, what are you doing? Stick to the script. It works for you. Don't stop it, especially the quarterbacks of yesteryear in the late 90s and early 2000s, who I thought it almost divided along racial lines, that the mobile quarterback, the black quarterback, was like, nah, I'm a pure pocket passer. I ain't running anymore. And we've seen it for guys like a Michael Vick, a Donovan McNabb, et cetera, who just all of a sudden in the prime of their careers, when you still have all of that explosiveness, they stop running the ball as much, which really affects the defense. But I would be Cox because the path of least resistance down the field is throwing the football, not running the football. And that's why I'm going to side with you, B. Cox, because if you just look at how the game has evolved, why would you want to be the guy with the ball in your hand having to get hit and touched by 5 or 6 guys, average weight 250 pounds, on the plays you hold the ball, versus let me throw the ball to Hollywood and let him go out there and catch the ball. He's about 170, 180. The guy who's going to tackle him about 200. One-on-one collision between receiver and DB, move down the field. And how are we moving down the field, which is most important? Do you know, here's the numbers on this. Last year, 4.3 yards per carry, rushing. Committed to the run, 4.3 yards. If you just threw a pass, I'm not even talking about you completed or not, 7.2 yards. But let's just say you committed to the pass, you actually completed it. Over 11 yards per completion. So not only is it the physics, but it's the math, and it's the smartest thing to do. Get that ball out your hand to those playmakers and let them deal with that.
Hey, Marcellus.
Let's switch gears.
Hey, Marcellus.
Oh, you got something?
He didn't take big hits. So think about Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali said, I touched the light switch and I was in my bed under my blanket before it got dark. Once the light catches up to Lamar, then he needs to throw the ball. But until then, turn that light off and be in the bed, young fella.
Man, if you've been in that ring before, tell him, B. Cox, it only takes one punch and then it's lights out. To a team with even more questions, let's transition at the quarterback position. The New England Patriots, without Tom Brady, Bill Belichick is now left with journeyman Brian Hoyer and unproven youngster Jarrett Stidham in the quarterback room, which a recent column ranked as the worst in the NFL. No doubt, the stats don't paint a pretty picture. With Belichick moving from the GOAT to a couple of guys without much on their resumes, so Brian, taking a look at that, will Belichick be enough to overcome the lack of quarterback talent in New England this year?
Yes. First of all, we don't know if there's a lack of quarterback talent. Nobody knew Tom Brady when he came out. So for Bill Belichick to go into this offseason, go into the draft, not take a quarterback, he must be ultra confident that Jarrett Stidham is his guy. The second thing about it is the defense finished #1 in the league last year in scoring defense. They have a good running game. I think that they'll do a really good job of covering up for that position. Are they Super Bowl contenders? No. Are they playoff contenders? Yes. I think all roads go through Buffalo, but until you beat the man, you can't become the man, so New England's still going to be in the playoff picture.
See, but that's why I'm taking what B. Cox you just said and saying, no, he can't overcome it. You want to know why? And I know you love the Patriots. I know I watched that film. You was on the Patriots on some of them film clips. This is why I can't go with Bill Belichick being the guy that is able to overcome it. He didn't do it with Tom Brady this past year. I'm not basing overcome with winning the division. I'm not basing overcome with having a winning record. I'm not basing overcome with making it to the playoffs. I'm not making or basing it off of going past the first round. It's Super Bowl or bust for Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots. That's the standard that they've created. God. So, no, he can't overcome it. Yes, I am going with that because you know what? The reason why they got rid of Tom Brady was because they felt like they couldn't do any more with Tom Brady, and that would be to win the Super Bowl. I'm not going for anything less than that, so therefore I'm saying he can't overcome it because these two guys that seemingly look like one journeyman, one young bum will not be the guys that replace the GOAT of GOATs. Sorry. Young bum.
Oh, man. Young bum butt. I can't even, first of all, I'm not even going to address the whole Super Bowl or bust stuff. Like, I don't know what fan base you're trying to stoke right now, and you just you podium talking right now. You ain't keeping it 100. We know how this game goes. It's not Super Bowl or bust. That said, for the Patriots, either one of these quarterbacks, all I'm saying is if either one of these quarterbacks could tread water, Bill Belichick can win with them. That's just how the game goes. That's how much I respect Bill Belichick as a mastermind, especially defensively. It is the worst room. I looked at all the rooms. Boy, I was loaded. I was trying to find me another room worse than this, and I couldn't. But I will say this. I say it's the worst room with an asterisk because I look at a guy who's unknown, and I say I don't demerit that guy. I don't debit that guy versus a guy that I know is a proven bad player. Therefore, more than likely, he's a backup. So this is an interesting play because I don't don't know if Jarrett Stidham's going to be that dude or not. But I'm going to give him his opportunity because we have to learn from our own history. Do y'all remember when Patrick Mahomes came out? Why did y'all go up and draft Patrick Mahomes? He wasn't that good at Texas Tech. I mean, he was all right, but he had a losing record. And then we had to hear all the reports. Boy, he's killing it in practice. Yeah, if he was so good, he'd be starting over Alex Smith. And then week 17, he went out there, and a lot of people said, ooh, where's the crow to eat? Next year, we know what happened. And the year after that, we know what happened. Let's look at Lamar Jackson. He should play receiver. He can't make it NFL. He can't throw. Excuse me, Dougie Fresh. This dude is an MVP in the NFL and improving year by year. So I got to look at all those examples and say it's the worst. Yeah, he won the Heisman and actually played better, and they didn't give him the Heisman. It is the worst room, but pause. It's the worst room with an asterisk. Coming up, Big Ben is about to make a big move off the field. We'll tell you what to make of it next. Speak for Yourself is presented by Hyundai. Welcome back to Speak for Yourself from the Crib, presented by Hyundai. Marcellus Wiley here, joined once again by LeVar Arrington and Papa OG, Brian Cox in the building. Let's move to Pittsburgh, where Big Ben is looking to have a major comeback this season, but is about to start a comeback off the field as well. Steelers quarterback is famous for blocking people on Twitter, but is reportedly going to unblock all the accounts he's blocked over the years and let everyone back into his Twitter life. Oh, Brian, what do you think is motivating Big Ben to do this?
I think when you get older, man, and you mature a little bit, those comments that you used to read don't bother you as much. And you kind of want to enjoy your last couple of years before you ride off into the sunset. And I think that Ben is just in a position now where the locker room is kind of bored since you don't have Antonio Brown, you don't have Le'Veon Bell. You kind of got some guys that are just lunch pail kind of guys. I think that he's going to try to show some leadership, I think, towards the end of his career.
I look at it as shenanigans. These are definitely shenanigans in the sense that it's a campaign. It's a campaign for Big Ben to get some attention. There's a lot going on right now. It's an act of goodwill. It's like, oh my gosh, we're fighting all of these things that are so important to our culture and our society. You know what? Let me get involved in this. I'm gonna unblock y'all. I'm gonna put out an olive branch, and we're gonna move forward. I'm healthy. I'm throwing balls right now. I'm putting out these different videos. Oh, by the way, let me make sure I'm doing this act of goodwill to kind of clear up the governor coming at my neck talking about I shouldn't have been out during the pandemic as well. So I'm just going to make sure that I have this cleanse and cleanup campaign that takes place heading into, I mean, we're in June. We're going to see what Big Ben has left in another month or so. So let me build some goodwill just in case that rust don't come off quick enough for some of the people that's onlooking what my abilities used to be, but what they are right now.
I think there's a two-pronged approach to this, and I'm going to give you my first layer right now. I really think that in his heart, he's trying to show growth. And let's be real about this. You can't grow without growing pains. So you need to get yourself back in that battlefield of criticism and people talking about your game. And then you can grow from that adversity. You can grow from those experiences. I know I do as an analyst. Every time somebody takes a shot at me, trust me, I'm reading it. And if you're talking about the act, I'm fine. If you're talking about Big Ben, the football player, he should be fine. When you start talking about the man, when you start talking about me, then we got something different because you took it to the actor. But Big Ben should understand this situation. There's wisdom in the crowd. There is a lot of wisdom in the crowd. You throw something out there on Twitter, it may take a lot of digging to find that diamond, but it's out there because none of us is as smart as all of us. So I think Big Ben is growing. I think this is a wholehearted approach for him to actually grow as a quarterback and hopefully as a man.
Listen, let me add two things to this conversation. Number one, I don't have any social media because I don't want some skeleton crawling out the closet from my past talking about, hey, I miss you, I want you. No, me and my wife been together 18 years. I don't know none of that. Ain't none of that. None of that. That ain't going down.
Protect the ring.
And then the second thing, all of us have retired from the NFL. When you get old, man, and when you know that you're coming towards the end, you want to enjoy that. You want to get that experience, and you just want to, some of the comments that used to be mean don't mean as much to you anymore. You use it for motivation, for people to say bad things to you, to get yourself prepared to go out and play at a level that is wonderful. To be the second highest paid quarterback in the NFL would be on a high level. So who knows what motivation is? I'm just happy that the man is kind of showing a little glimpse into who he is and how he's matured over the years.
I'll just add this. If we're basing maturity and wisdom and understanding off of his actions of what he's doing with his Twitter following, I'm tripping out. Like right now, I'm gonna go for a long walk and I'm gonna think about where we're at. Like we really have gone off the rails as a country if we're basing it off of him unblocking Twitter followers. I'm gonna just start with that first, but then I'm gonna finish with this. If I'm able to move product, mainly myself as the product or whatever it is I'm bringing to the table, and I don't have to pay millions and millions of dollars to companies to do that for me because I have a strong enough following on my social media. If you notice, it's the new place to sell. Things are digital. People don't even leave their couch to get the things that they want. This could be a business strategy, a business play to set himself up for the long run, the long game, to be able to leverage his following. So it would be responsible to try to maybe mend fences or open those lanes back up. It could have been some very important, strategically important people that he blocked in that number, not just everyday followership. So I think if I'm being serious right now, you would be wrong not to try to maximize your social media. As we're seeing with the clips, he's already doing that with some of the promotional materials that are being put out there. So I would think that would truly be the reason, not this big moral push or this compass or delivery or discovery that social media is something that's great for me. And so now I'm going to bring you all back. All the people I hated, I'm bringing you all back to me now. Like, man, y'all need to get out of here with that.
Hey, LeVar, you know me too damn well. I told you it was 2 layers. Here's the second layer. It's nothing but brand building 101. And I want everyone to be mindful of there's a Drew Brees out there as a quarterback and there's a Tom Brady. Notice the difference, how Tom Brady all of a sudden, TB12, Facebook shows. Hey, now that he's out of New England, he's on Howard Stern and doing everything, going to people's houses that he don't even know, everything. Like Tom Brady's for the smoke because he wants to build that brand up. And we know that Big Ben needs some cleaning up of his image and his brand if he's going to maximize his post-retirement dollars. But let's talk about Drew Brees, who just a week ago was at the barbecue on the grill. That was our dude. And then all of that human capital and equity kind of got put in jeopardy with one comment. So I think if you're Big Ben, you're smart. If you're Matt Ryan, you're smart. Matt Ryan gave $500,000 the day Drew Brees got in trouble to the city of Atlanta. He know where he's playing. So all these quarterbacks are starting to think about, hey, man, I got to get this thing right. So if you're going to be smart about your post-retirement, you actually got to start that planning while you're an active player. Coming up, we'll give you our latest approval ratings for Luka Doncic. And Uncle Jimmy will tell what he expects from the NBA's return with that shirt on. Next! Welcome back to Speak for Yourself from the crib. Now I'm joined by Uncle Jimmy in this building. Hey, Uncle Jimmy, Luka Doncic's trainer says Luka and a bunch of other stars are out of shape. You worried about the NBA's return next month?
Bro, let me ask you a question. If Luke Diacobance's got a personal trainer and he's out of shape, what the hell must Zion be looking like right about now? Hey, man, last time we seen that brother, what'd he do? He was so big, he stuck his foot through a shoe. Since that time, he done gained a little weight. He done ate a little more. We see him again, I bet he stick his foot through a float. Hey, Hey, man, y'all worried about these kids catching corona. You better worry about them having a damn coronary. That's what the hell y'all better worry about happening. Come on, man.
Man, that's it for us. See you tomorrow.